that was a result of the activities at the arsenal.
Of testing of, yeah.
Right, and there was actually some radioactive materials that were burned in a burn pit on this property, which many people may have gone by and not even realized what it was. It's if you go along Greeno Boulevard past BB&N and come up toward Arsenal Street, it's that fenced off area to your right.
It's below the Mount Auburn Club.
Right. And a lot of people have been working for many, many years to encourage the Army Corps of Engineers to survey the contamination there and clean it up. And the Watertown Conservation Commission has been very, very active, has a citizens group that we have in Watertown called the Watertown Citizens for Environmental Safety.
Yeah, yeah.
One of my colleagues on the town council, Susan Falkoff, has been
she's
very, very active.
And she has been amazing in this whole cleanup of the arsenal.
Right, she was part of the RAB for the arsenal.
Yeah,
and by extension, she's been very, very involved in this GSA property, but with several other citizen activists in Watertown as well.
That has been going on for more than 10 years.
At least.
At least, yeah, and long.
The latest development in that is the Army Corps came to Watertown last November and presented the results of their latest sampling. There are still some PCBs that need to be cleaned up, and in fact they need to do some further sampling to ascertain exactly what the area is that's contaminated. Then there will have to be remediation, and then there will have to be a process of determining what the land can safely be used for. I think the hope of most people, certainly the Conservation Commission in Watertown, is that it will be restored as a wetland, because it performs a very important function.
It's often even flooded. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
And but that there can also be some passive recreational uses there, walking and so on, and that will then become another part of the parklands for public use along the river.
Yeah, and then there's some buildings there.
That too. There are a couple of old barracks that also need to be taken care of. So there's work still to be done. And of course, funding is always an issue. My hope is that we can work, particularly with our congressional delegation, on that.
Markey has been very involved in that also.
He has, and recently, I know Senator Kerry has been working in a number of communities to try to identify funding for the Army Corps to do these sorts of cleanups of
these are jobs,
landfills.
Green jobs.
That's true.
Yes, yeah. So these are projects that are below the Galen Street Bridge, but as a town council member, and I don't know how the state would play in that, you've always also been involved in what's upriver from the Galen Street, which is an area that on Pleasant Street where Watertown really could become a town on the water in a very exciting way. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that stretch of the river is really very, very different from what is below the Galen Street Bridge. And that's one of the things that I love about the Charles in Watertown, is that it has a very different character depending on where you are.
It's much narrower.
It becomes very narrow.
It's very shallow.
It's shallow. Yeah. It's very wooded. You almost feel like you're in a sort of a mountain stream kind of environment. It runs up roughly parallel to Pleasant Street, which used to be a heavy manufacturing district in Watertown. There were a number of mills that located there to take advantage of the water power, and that area, the sorts of industries that were there, of course, have long gone.
And did cause some of the pollution of the sediments.
Absolutely. But now what we're trying to do at the municipal level is to encourage better and higher uses of the old industrial properties there along Pleasant Street, a mix of residential and commercial and some light industrial, particularly biotech and life sciences types of projects that would both make it a more productive part of the town, because unfortunately now, in terms of tax revenue, just better use of the land. A lot of it now is warehouses or is just parking lots.
Yeah, a lot of parking lots.
But as part of that, we are very much focused on both access to the river and making the river a real asset to the town and to the property owners who may want to develop that part of.
Is there going to be any residential there? Is that also part of it, or is it mostly?
We did a very careful study, again with help from Sasaki.
Yeah.
That involved a lot of community input, and that resulted in a Pleasant Street corridor master plan, which was then developed into new zoning rules. And in my job as the chair of the Economic Development and Planning Committee on the council in Watertown, we spent many sessions with a lot of input from the community in designing not just rules in terms of how to protect the river, setbacks and height limitations and so on, but we also tried to think of creative ways in which we could get developers to take advantage of incentives
of the water, yeah,
in order to open up the river to public access, because now when you drive along Pleasant Street,
you don't even know the river's there.
You can't even tell the river's there.
No.
And also to create more open space, create contiguous open spaces.
A path, there will be a path along
exactly,
the shore.
and
yeah.
we provide incentives for developers who will open up their property to bike paths, who will provide other sorts of alternative transportation, whether it be shuttle buses down into Watertown Square, showers on their premises for people who want to bike.
Yeah.
We try to tie those sorts of policy goals that we have in terms of the river and public access to the river and preserving the river with the sort of development that we hope will take place out there.
In a way, along the Charles, it's been interesting that because the river was so polluted and so smelly, nobody wanted to be near. So in a way, we are the beneficiaries now because we have the parklands, and probably had the river not been so polluted and smelly, that area would have been heavily developed a long time ago, and now you can come in with more careful planning tools and planning ideas and make that parkland a public amenity. So in a way, the post-pollution era offers some new opportunities.
Well, that's certainly our hope, and I think, as you said, it really is a wonderful opportunity for Watertown to make that part of our town a river front part of the town. And we're working also with the state, because the state has a number of programs that it makes available to encourage economic development, and we've recently had that area designated as an economic target area, which means a certain state tax incentives come into play and so on. So right now there's not a lot of activity given the overall state of the economy, but I think we've set the right kind of foundation.
Yeah, and just like with the other plans, the bicycle path or Nonantum Road, the process of preparing something like that takes a long time. And if you only start when you think there's money, you're too late.
Right.
So it's good to prepare and have some projects ready on the shelf, so when money comes in or the economy picks up, you then are ready to run. So I think it's wonderful to see projects that are in early stages, but others that are ready to go into the ground. So Watertown is really doing a fabulous job. I know we will be coming to the end of the program,